always say, well, when you smell that odor, that's money you spent. Don't worry about it. You know, everybody dies from something. Well, I remember growing up seeing kids with severe skin disorders to where their skin would break up with open lesions. I remember seeing kids to where their skin was so dry, and we, you know, other kids would tease kids like that. The skin was just so dry, it would crack sometime on some of these kids. And I remember this one young lady, and I see her periodically in Port Arthur now that I've been back there, but we were in high school, this was like in the 60s, and her skin still showed scars from when she was a child growing up, from being impacted from the chemicals that was landing on her skin and getting into her pores. Doctors will never tell you in industrial towns why your child has severe asthma or why your child's skin has this condition. They know, because the body is constantly fighting off dangerous toxins that try to invade it. That's a body's natural response. It's just like a person with allergies. Whenever you breathe in pollen, the pollen goes into your nose, and immediately your system starts to build up this mucus to help capture it so you can blow it out. As gross as it may sound, but it's a defense mechanism. That's what it is. Well, your skin has a natural defense mechanism. And when you breathe in hydrogen sulfide, sulfuric acid, ammonia, your system reacts to that too. But then it's not organic. It's an inorganic material entering your body, and your genetic makeup just really don't know how to deal with it, so things kind of get off balance. Your immune system really don't know how to handle it, and your body absorbs it, but then what does it do with it? This is when you develop the tumors. This is when you have all this material stored in your fatty tissue, and the cancers start to develop. I've talked to a few doctors about this, and to me it's kind of a no-brainer as to what happens. The unusual growth, brain tumors, stomach tumors, tumors in the uterus. All these things are happening. A disproportionate number of people in places like Port Arthur, Texas, where I'm from, Deer Park, where Juan Pardes is from, Richmond, California, right here where you all live, South Philly, we got Baltimore, Maryland, where they have huge problems with refineries. All these communities from coast to coast, from east to west, north to south, there is a inherent and constant problem in the community: respiratory problems. All these communities have a large number of people that suffer from respiratory problems, even though the social and economic status may vary. But the fact is, they have a couple of things in common. They live next to refineries and chemical plants. You have a disproportionate number of people that develop cancer. You have a disproportionate number of people there with respiratory problems. And if you look at the TRI reports, the Toxic Release Inventory Report, it shows you what's going on in all these communities by area codes. And yet we still can't get the doctors to say, this is happening and that is happening. Why? Because a lot of these companies provide a huge economic tax base to the cities which they do business. And a lot of people make money from them. But those people at the bottom who don't even work at these facilities most of the time, because those people that live on the fence line rarely get jobs at the very facilities that's dumping tons and tons of toxins on them. And that's a consistent practice throughout the United States as well. They much rather bring in outsiders, and I think they do this because they know that if they use local talent, we're going to put the dots together. You use local workers, we're going to put it all together. And we're going to realize that, I need to tell the people on the outside of this fence what's going on the inside. This is why they use subcontractors. Working in Port Arthur, Texas, living in Port Arthur, Texas, it's no longer a mystery to me why this community is not progressing forward. Too many people are benefiting from having things just the way it is. From our mayor to local city council. This is one reason why you never really see local government get involved with trying to help reduce refinery emissions upon the very people that they were put in office to serve. Because everybody is making money one way or another, and nobody really wants to rock the boat. As a matter of fact, in Port Arthur, Texas, there is a company called Veolia. Veolia is an incinerator facility. had a battle with Veolia back in 2007 where they tried to bring in chemical weapon waste. It was called hydrolysate. And this hydrolysate is like mustard gas material. It was left over from World War II. It was a chemical weapon, basically. This company was able to circumvent federal laws and transport these chemical weapon material across 5 state lines to bring to Port Arthur, Texas and burn. Why? Because it's the area of least resistance. It's the area of least protest. All the other states didn't want it. And guess what? Their congressmen stood up with them. Their local government stood up with them. This is the one product that everybody came together on in a few states. But in Texas, oh yeah, bring it to Texas. How much will we make? How much money will the state get? How much money will the local government get? The company, they're pushing it all out there because everybody gets a bite except the people that are being impacted. The only thing we get most of the time in situations like that is just a lung full of pollution. Pollution we know nothing about. And then we wonder why this person has this severe cancer or this unique cancer, something that's very rare. Why does this person suffer with this severe blood disorder? What's going on? We need to find out how did this happen? But they always allude to what the possibilities are, but they stay clear of pointing to a clear culprit. We know for a fact that refineries dump carcinogens like benzene, 1,3-butadiene. We know for a fact that they dump chemicals that irritate the respiratory system and the immune system and the reproductive system like sulfur dioxide, sulfuric acid. It's a well-known fact. It's been tested for years, back in the 60s. They knew about sulfur. They knew how it impacted your body. They knew how benzene impacted the body, but yet they continue to allow people to live in close proximity. Now, we cannot afford to keep moving people around like chess pieces on a board. That's not the way it should be done. But what we should do is learn to get these corporations to adhere at the bare minimum to the Clean Air Act laws that are presently on the books. If we can get these industries to do this, that would be a great beginning. But not only do they not obey the laws on the Clean Air Act books, but what they do is every year supersede the amount of sulfur, benzene, hydrogen sulfide, sulfuric acid, ammonia, and other carbons that they dump into the air. Every year they supersede that by tons, and it's in the toxic release inventory. We had a study done in Port Arthur, Texas back in 2001 by Dr. Marvin Legator. He's a toxicologist out of UTMB. Denny Larson was instrumental in setting that all up and making it happen for the Port Arthur community. And we took 100 people from Port Arthur, 100 people from Beaumont, which had the same social and economic status, and 100 people from Galveston, same social and economic status as Port Arthur and Beaumont. The only difference with the people in Galveston is that they did not have a refinery or chemical plant located next to them. But the group of people in Beaumont and Port Arthur did. The people in Port Arthur and Texas unequivocally all had the same type of issues when it came to health impacts. A high level of people with respiratory problems, severe skin disorders, and cancers. In Port Arthur, we have 3 dialysis clinics. In Galveston, Texas, where they had no refineries or chemical plants, but they had the same social, low income, and economic status, these folks had a bare minimum of people with respiratory problems, liver disease, and cancer. So what he found, his conclusion is that it was a direct correlation between the illnesses people were displaying in the community and the types of chemicals they were being exposed to. And test after test have shown that, not only in the Port Arthur, Texas area, but all across this country where tests have been done and surveys have been taken, it keeps pointing back to the same thing. There's a direct tie between illnesses that people are displaying in the community, like respiratory problems, hypertension, liver and kidney disease, and the type of chemicals they've been exposed to. So why can't we get people off the fence line? What is the problem? Why won't our federal government come forward and say, look, let's end this once and for all? Well, number one is corporate greed. We have to learn how important it is to start letting our government know that it's time to get rid of those special interest groups that they're catering to. we have to let them know that it's time to put more money into renewable energies, not necessarily to try to just shut these industries down because they're we just want them to stop making money. But no, they're not healthy for human health. It's not healthy for the earth. It's not healthy for the very air that we breathe. It's not healthy for the trees and the wildlife. It's an inorganic material that's killing us. And only a few people at the top are benefiting from these industries. The only thing we get is a belly full of pollution, a few jobs, temporary jobs most of the time, because most of the work goes to people that come from outside. And then they're bouncing around the country, and then when their money is gone and they're ill, the company is gone too because they were temporary help. They get no assistance. So the time has come to take a stand, and this is one reason why I sought to write the book, A Lethal Dose of Smoke and Mirrors, because it's a game. It's a game that they play with our life, as we like to say, a shell game. When one company starts to fold and you bring a lawsuit against that company, they change the name on it. And when they get busted, what do? Pay a meager fine. They've dumped tons and tons of chemicals into the air, and then they have to pay a $500 fine. That's not fair. The community that was impacted, what do they get? Nothing. They get told, well, we find the refineries or the chemical plants, they paid the fine, so don't worry about it. But wait a minute, excuse me, my child still has respiratory problems. You know how expensive it is for the medication? My father still have heart condition. You know how difficult it is to pay that bill? Shouldn't somebody pay for that? The person that created this condition? But you're always left with the burden of proof. There's a family in Port Arthur, Texas, the mother, her 3 kids, and I think her mom, they all have to use nebulizers in one family. When they went to the doctor to talk about it and try to identify why they had this condition, the doctor said, well, it's probably just allergies, don't worry about it. And then finally they kept pressing it. And he said, well, I'll tell you this here. It's probably if you moved away from Port Arthur, the condition would get better. But as long as you're here, it's going to remain the same and probably get worse. And so they said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, well, it's the type of companies we live next to. Without naming names, I can't point any fingers, and really, I would deny this if you ever told this to the media, but this is what's probably going on. So everybody knows the truth, but everybody's afraid of losing their job because these industries have a lot of power. They carry a lot of weight. And in places like Port Arthur, Deer Park area, those are the big jobs. Anytime anybody's making any substantial amount of money when it comes to working in any particular industry, it's the oil and gas industry. But how much is too much? How much pollution can one community take? There's Total Oil Refinery in Port Arthur, Texas. There's the Motiva Oil Refinery, which now they went from putting out 285,000 barrels of oil per day to 625,000 barrels of oil per day. Then there's Veolia incinerator facility. And then there's Chevron Chemical. And then we have ExxonMobil right down the road from us in Beaumont, Texas. All these chemical plants and refineries concentrated in one small community. And the way they get away with it is because they know that most of the people live in this community are low income, living at or below the poverty line, and they can't afford to protest. They can't afford to pick up a picket sign and go fight for their environmental justice rights. They're too busy trying to put food on the table and keep the lights on. So they're taking advantage of our situation. And this is one of the reasons why I've committed my life to fighting for environmental justice, community development, and what have you. Because too many people across this country are being dealt with wrongly. They're being taken advantage of, and they're being sacrificed in the name of corporate wealth so the nation can have clean burning gasoline. And they look at us as statistics. Well, statistically speaking, only 10% of the population is really being harmed by pollution from refineries and chemical plants. And that's pretty good. But if your mother, or father, or grandfather, or your child or your grandchild